Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of my How to Build a QAV250 series. In part 1 of the video, we soldered the ESCs onto the power distribution board and connected the signal leads onto the NACE32 on the bottom here. And then we connected the motors to the ESCs and stacked the OSD board on top of the NACE32. And we connected a power cable onto the power distribution board also. In part 2 of the video, we're gonna set up the NACE32, and I'm not gonna get too much into the OSD board because I made a completely separate video and post on how to do that, so we'll just touch up on the highlights, and then we'll also connect the video transmitter, the FPV camera, onto the OSD board. If you're following along this video, try to watch both parts of the videos before you start, because in part 1 of the video I told you guys to leave on the little black leads on the ESCs. If you're paying attention on how you connect the motors to the ESCs, whether the wires are crossed or not, according to the diagram in part 1, you shouldn't need to connect to BL Heli to reverse the motors. Because if you corrected it right, the motors are going to spin the way they're supposed to. The only reason you need to connect to BL Heli is if you want to do any configurations or settings on your ESCs, but you really shouldn't need to. Because what I'm probably going to end up doing is I'm going to remove these black leads from the ESCs. So if you're just starting your build, you probably don't even need to leave on the black leads. You can just completely take them off and then just have the white wires, the signal wires coming out of the ESCs. But if you do decide to leave it on in case you need to do any tuning, just you can just don't shrink up the heat shrinks on the ESCs just yet. Okay, so before we connect to CleanFlight to set up our NACE32, we need to connect a little 3-pin header connector on the NACE32 signal input. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to connect a 2-pin 90-degree header for the buzzer. So now we're just going to solder on a 3-pin connector so we can connect it to the NACE32. I like to solder this connector onto the receiver pins because it makes the NACE32 more compact, and it cuts down on all the header pins and makes things lighter. So when you connect it, make sure you connect it like this. You're going to go ground on the very left, and then power, and then the signal on number 1, like this. Okay, so once you have it connected, I'm just going to have it flip over like this, and then this will connect to the D4R2 like that on this one, or actually it's going to go this way. I might shorten this up just to clean up the pins, but yeah. To set up the RSSI on our OSD OGE, well, I'm just going to go through this quickly. I'll go into it more depth on the other video, but the normal way it tells you to output RSSI on pin 2, on channel 2, but with the method that I learned, the only one that worked, you don't need to. So the only thing you need to do on the D4R2 is just put this jumper across 3 and 4, and that'll enable PPM. And then one thing I forgot to do earlier was to put a little 2-pin header on the buzzer output on the NACE32. So we're just going to do that now. So what I have here is just a little buzzer that I soldered on to a wire and just wrapped it in some wire mesh into a 2-pin connector, and then it's going to go to a 90 degree 2-pin header. So I like to connect it on here while I'm mounting, especially if you're going to mount the pins going inside, because if you do it like this without the connector and you sit it flush like that, what's going to happen is that the pin is going to sit too low to where you can't push the header or the connector on all the way. So what I like to do is put it on first and then mount it like that, so you'll know exactly how much clearance you need right there. So I'll just do that, flip it, and then solder it. Okay, so now our NACE 32 is all soldered up and ready to be mounted. Okay, before we get into the programming in the NACE 32, we're going to set up our Taranis first. So the first thing you do,
welcome to Free Sky Taranis,
is you need to create a new model on your
0
Taranis.
dB.
So just hit menu and then just scroll down to an empty channel bank. Create model. Just ignore that. And then once you have that, just hit page down. And then for model name, you can just name it whatever you want. I'll just name it QAV250. Keep it simple. Whoops. And then to get a capital, just hold enter. Like that. Okay, so once you have that set, we're going to skip the binding for now until we get into the CleanFlight. But right now we're going to just set up some switches. So what I like to do is I like to set this SE switch right here to be my flight modes, because it's just one of the switches that's easy to get to. So if you're flying around and you get into trouble, you can just go up there and flip it to angle mode, and then your quad will, you know, level out really quick. And then I like to set like SD, this switch right here, for armed in the top position, and then for the buzzer or discovery buzzer, I like to have it down. And then I also like to set this little switch right here, SH switch, to make the Taranis read out my RSSI signal. That helps later when we get into the RSSI part on the OSD board. So to program the switches, just hit menu and then make sure your quad is selected. Go down until you get to page 6 of 12, and that's the mixer. So channels 1 through 4 are reserved for you know, you're flying your quads, and then channel 5 will be auxiliary 1, channel 6 is auxiliary 2, and 7 is 3, 4 is 8. So I'm going to set my auxiliary 1, whoops. I'm going to set my auxiliary 1, which is channel 5, to my flight modes. So to do that, just hold enter and then go to source and then hit that, and then when it's blinking, just hit whatever switch you want to assign to this auxiliary. So in my case, I'm going to hit this switch, the SE, exit out of that. So that would be auxiliary 1, and then auxiliary 2, channel 6, hold enter, go to source, hit enter, and then this is going to be my arm, disarm, and buzzer. Switch that, exit. And that's pretty much it for setting up your switches for flight mode and arm and disarm. And then next, what we're going to do is just a little thing I like to put on my Taranis. I'm going to make my Taranis say engine arm when I arm my quad, and then this will be the switch that tells me the RSSI signal. So just scroll down to page 11 of 12 on the special functions, and then for the engine arming, you're just going to hold enter, go to this one, and then push the button until it's flashing, and then you're going to set to whatever this function you want. So I'm going to push it up, and then it's going to say SD up is whatever setting I have set, and then hit enter, and then scroll down to this part and find play track, and then go to the next, go here, and then find engine arm, or engine on, my bad. Set. So what this is doing is when I hit the switch up, which is my arming, the Taranis is just going to say engine arm.
Engine on.
That just kind of lets me know I just armed my quad. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set this little this little toggle switch right here to play out my RSSI. So it'll be easier when we get into the tuning of the RSSI and the OSD later. So just exit, scroll down, go here, and then again assign the switch. You just push this button until it's flashing, and then just hit this. But make sure it's showing SH up like that. And then go over to the next one, and then you're gonna select play value, and then select RSSI. We'll go find RSSI right there. So what this is doing is when I hit this switch, the Taranis is going to tell me my RSSI.
0 dB.
It's saying 0 right now because we have nothing connected. Okay, so that's it. And then next, I'll show you how to set up the RSSI part on the OSD. I'll show you how to set up your Taranis to output the RSSI signal correctly for your OSD. One thing to note before we start is that I'm running the latest version of OpenTX, and to find out what version your Taranis is running, just hold hit menu and then page down, and it'll show you right here version OpenTX Taranis 2.0.17. So if you're still running the old version 1. whatever, you need to update your Taranis to the latest version for this to work. Just go to my website and I'll show you links on how to do that. It's pretty easy. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is you're going to scroll down or hit menu, and then have your model selected, and then just push page down, and then go to page 5 to inputs. So here you're just going to create a new channel that's not being used in CleanFlight. Normally I have channels, channels 1 through 4 are reserved for, flying the quad, and then I have 5 and 6 set up for like arm, disarm, and a flight mode. So I usually just use like channel 8 or something that I know, something I know I'm not going to use any switches for. So I'll just go down to 8, hit enter, and then input name. I'm just going to name it RSSI, just to keep it simple. Okay, and then and then over here, this is where the key point to this trick. For source, hit enter, and then you scroll until you see RSSI. RSSI right there. And then you're going to change the scale to 1. Whoops. Hold enter. Change this to 100. and leave the weight at 100 also. So you're done with this page. Enter, exit out, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the mixer, and then on my controller I already have SD set as arm, disarm, and SE as my flight modes. So for whatever channel you put the this RSSI on, I put it on channel 8. You go to the mixer for that channel. So go down to channel 8, hit enter, and then here you're going to make the source RSSI, and then you're going to change the weight to 200. Whoops. Change this to 200. And then put the offset to -100. Whoops. -100. And that, and then -100, and then that's it. Okay, that's it for the Taranis part. So your Taranis is set up for displaying RSSI on your OSD. Okay, so before we can connect the NACE32 to CleanFlight, we need to bind the D4R2 to our receiver or our transmitter. So the way you do that,
Welcome
turn it
to
on.
Free Sky Taranis. 0 dB.
Hit menu, make sure your model is selected, page down, and then scroll down to this part right here. Okay. For we're going to be using the D4R2 in PPM mode, and to do that you have to change the mode from D16 to D8. So hit enter and push up, change it into D8 mode, and then exit. And then to bind, just go down here to bind, and then to bind the D4R2 to your Taranis, you just plug your D4R2 into the NACE32. This is that little 3-pin connector we just put on earlier. And make sure you put the signal, power, ground on the top row pins. And then on the D4R2, you have to put this little square thing that came with your receiver across the input leads on channels 3 and 4. And that puts the D4R2 in the PPM mode. So the way you bind it is you have to hold the Failsafe button on the D4R2 and power up your quad at the same time. So and then before you do that, on your Taranis, you select bind and start beeping. I'm just going to line this power up real quick. And then just hold this Failsafe button while powering up your quad. And let go, unplug, and then once you exit out of this, and then you plug your quad back in, the LED should turn green. See, I don't know if you can see that, but it's green, so our D4R2 is bound to our Taranis. Okay, so now we're going to set up our NACE32 with CleanFlight. For the sake of saving time, I'm not going to show you how to get CleanFlight. I've done that plenty of times in my other videos, but I'll put links in the description below, or head to my website and I'll show you all the links you need to get CleanFlight on your computer. So for now, I'm just going to assume that you already have CleanFlight. Okay, so we're going to start up CleanFlight. Move some of this stuff around. Okay, before you can connect CleanFlight to your NACE32, you have to flash your NACE32 with CleanFlight. So first thing you do is just plug in your USB to your NACE32, and then if you have your OSD board connected, make sure you set the little toggle switch towards the USB. Because what that does, it disconnects the TX-RX from the OSD board from the NACE32. Because if it's connected, you can't connect to CleanFlight. So just make sure it's set to the right. And then on CleanFlight, first thing you have to do is that you have to flash your NACE32 with CleanFlight firmware. So go to firmware flasher right here, and then select the board you're using for the most stable version. In our case, it's the NACE32. Let's go here and then hit load firmware online. It's loaded, and then just go down here, hit flash firmware. And then just let it do its thing. Okay, so now it says programming successful. You have CleanFlight on your NACE32. Now you can connect. Bam, you're connected. Okay, so for the accelerometer calibration, I'll just show you how to do it, but it's pretty simple. You'll probably have to do it again once you have your quad completely built and it's not all wobbly like this. But all you do is keep your quad completely flat and don't move it, and hit calibrate accelerometer. Let us do its thing, and it's calibrated. Okay, so skip ports. We're going to go to configuration. So I'm going to show you the settings I use on my setup. So first thing is right here, quad X. Make sure you have quad X selected because we're using a we're flying a quad. So make sure, pay attention to the this little diagram right here, because this is how your ESCs and your motor should be spinning. So this should be ESC motor 1, ESC and motor 2, 3, and 4, and then 1 should be turning clockwise, 2 counterclockwise, 3 counterclockwise, and 4 is clockwise. So pretty simple, self-explanatory. And then since we're using the BL20As with flash with the latest firmware, BL, you can just hit this switch right here, and you'll automatically get one shot on yours. And I also like to enable this motor stop. Motor stop is basically normally, if you don't have this set, when you arm your quad, arm your NACE32, your motors are going to automatically spin up. This just makes it not do that. And then this part is very important right here. Since we have our NACE32 pointing to the right with our USB on this side, we have to set our yaw adjustment to 90. If you have it pointed in any other way, just check on my website. I'll put a link and I'll show you how you need to have this adjusted. If you don't have this adjusted, your quad is going to flip like crazy when you try to take off. And then for now, you can leave all this stuff as is, default. And then since we're running the D4R2 and PPM mode, we have to select this RX PPM right here. And then for battery voltage, this is where you set your NACE32 to tell you when your battery voltage is too low. So I usually like to set mine to about 3.4. That means when the battery cells in your battery drops below this voltage, your buzzer is going to start buzzing. So you just multiply this number by however many cells you're flying. So if you're flying a 3 cell, this would be a 10.2. So once you're flying and your battery reaches 10.2, your buzzer is going to start beeping, and then we'll set up the OSD to display your battery voltage also, and then when it drops below 10.2, it'll start flashing to tell you you need to come back. Because these LiPo batteries, once a battery reaches this low point, it drops super fast. I've had times where I was flying over a lake and I almost fell into the water. So when you're flying, make sure you pay attention to the battery voltage. And then for our OSD setup, the RSSI, make sure you have this this RSSI ADC not checked. Don't check this. And that's pretty much it for the configuration tab. Whenever you make any kind of settings in any of these tabs, make sure you hit save and reboot before you go to the next one. Because if you make changes and go to the next one, it's not going to remember any of these. So PID tuning, I'll show you that later. Okay, so receiver. So to get your receiver to work, you need to plug your quad. Plug the battery into your quad. So we're gonna turn on. Let me adjust this a little. So you turn on your transmitter, and then you plug in your quad.
0 dB.
Okay, so right off the bat, you'll notice that our receiver is not working correctly, because you see the throttle here is changing the role, and that's because your channel map for a Taranis should be this JR Spectrum Gopher 1. Once you change that, hit save, and then now your throttle is correct, yaw, pitch, and your roll. And then this is your auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2. And then for our because we set our OSD on the RSSI, we selected channel 8 right here. We used channel 8 earlier when we were programming it. So set your RSSI channel, whatever channel you set it to output the RSSI signal. So we use 8. So just make sure you do that. Hit save. And then next we're going to go into modes. So modes is basically, you know, how you set up your switches. So for arming, we have this switch right here programmed for armed. So the way you set the modes is you hit range, and then make sure you have your correct auxiliary. We have this switch set to auxiliary 2. So I'll just go to auxiliary 2. And then it's in the up position. So just make sure you set this little range to wherever you have your switch set. And then we have our buzzer right here set on auxiliary 2. So I want this down position on auxiliary 2 to be my buzzer, like that. So I'll just set the range to where this little orange tab is. And then for my flight modes, I like to have the up position as angle. So what we're going to do is, this is my auxiliary 1, so I have auxiliary 1 here, and up is angle. Angle is basically the mode where it's an auto leveling. If you're flying and you let go of your sticks, your quad is going to go back to level. But it puts a limit on the angle you can fly your quad, so you can't do rolls or anything like that. But then horizon, you set auxiliary 1. I like to have horizon in the middle. Horizon is like angle. It's a self-leveling mode, but it doesn't have the limit on the angle, so you can fly and do rolls and flips and stuff like that. And then if you don't have anything set for a position on the flight mode, like I like to fly acro in the down position, like that. See, nothing is set right here. If you have nothing set, it goes automatically into rate mode, which means it's not auto leveling. If you let go of your sticks, your quad is just going to keep flying in that direction. So once you have all your stuff set, make sure you hit save. Okay, so next we're going to calibrate the ESCs, and to do that, what you're going to do is make sure you do this part with the props off, because it's really easy to get confused when you're doing all this stuff and then have your props spin up while it's on the desk, and that's not a good thing. So props off, and then click this little motor test thing, and then slide your master slider all the way up. And then when you plug in your battery, you're going to hear the BL Heli is going to make a whole bunch of tones and music and stuff. And then when the music is done, you're going to slide this master slider down all the way to the bottom. And then you'll hear some more music, and then it should be done. So slide it down, you'll hear the music, and it should be done. So I'm going to disconnect, and then connect back in. And then when you do your motors, they should all spin up at the same time. So they're spinning up around 1025-ish, and they're all spinning, so that's good. Okay, so next we're gonna make sure we have the motor spinning in the correct way. Back on this tab right here, configuration, it shows you which way the motors are supposed to be spinning. It's gonna be clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. So we're just gonna verify that in motors. So if you paid attention to the diagram in part 1 of the build, the motors that are spinning counterclockwise, the motor wire should be connected to the ESCs like directly, like this. And then the ones that spin clockwise, one of them, two of the three should be flipped. So it might be something like this. That's my cool diagram. But if you just follow that diagram, you shouldn't need to reverse any of your motor wires or connect or need to connect to BL Heli to reverse the motors. So we're just going to verify that right now. So the way I like to do it is I like to just get a piece of paper and put it on the motor. That way if it spins up, it's not going to hurt anything. Okay, so you have your motor tab, motor check thing checked, and then you just verify the spin direction on each of the motors. So this one should be spinning clockwise. And you see that it is right there. So that one's good. So ESC2 right here, ESC2 should be spinning counterclockwise. And it is. So ESC3 should be counterclockwise also, according to this diagram right here. So counterclockwise. And it's good. And then ESC4 should be clockwise. Like right here, clockwise. And it is. It's making that weird sound because it's a paper. But if I take this off, you can see that they're all spinning nicely and smoothly. Cool. So the motors or the ESCs are calibrated, and we verified that the motors are spinning in the correct way. So we don't have to reverse any motor wires or connect to BL Heli or anything. So once we're done with that, I'll just show you, I'll just plug everything up, and then I'll show you that everything works. So make sure you have your little switch to the away from the USB, and then I'm just going to connect a little buzzer that I already made up. It's just a regular buzzer connected on a 2-pin connector, and I'm just going to connect it to the little 90-degree 2-pin header we soldered on the NACE 32. So I'm just going to put this on, and then I'll show you everything works. Zoom out a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to turn on my controller.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis.
And then plug it in.
0 dB.
Okay, and then here's buzzer. Arm.
Engine on.
Okay, so now that we have our NACE 32 all set up in CleanFlight, and we've calibrated our ESCs, and we've made sure all our motors are spinning the correct direction, we're pretty much done with the setting up part on the ESCs. So we can go ahead and remove these little black leads on the ESCs. We probably could have left it off in the first place, but I wanted to keep them on just in case I needed to show you guys how to connect it to BL Heli to do any tuning or reverse any motors. But if you paid attention to how the motors are connected to the ESCs, you shouldn't need to reverse any of the motors. So you can go ahead and remove these. So in this, my second QAV build, or actually in my first QAV build, I noticed I had a lot of problems, or not, I wouldn't say problems, but a lot of issues that I had that are like reoccurring issues that I made solutions for. And the first one is this little power distribution board and this little cover that I made, because I remember on my last one I used to get a whole bunch of grass and junk all stuck in between my my power distribution and the frame. And so this is just one of many parts that I'm going to be using in this build. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these leads, and then I'll put on my parts and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've removed my the negative leads off my ESCs and put on my cover, and this is what it looks like, super clean. Another reason why I made this thing is it helps clean up all the wires on the insides, because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty OCD with my my builds. I like everything nice and neat and clean. And another reason why I made this is before you'd have to zip tie your ESCs onto your power distribution board, or like hot glue it or double-sided tape. But with this thing, it's got this little tab right here. I don't know if you can see, kind of holds the wires down to prevent the ESCs from moving around while you're flying. That way it'll keep the solder pads on there nice and tight, so you don't have to worry about them coming off. Okay, and then one more thing before we get into the connecting the FPV part. In my first QAV250 build, because these arms are fixed and not movable like the Zool or something, the folding arms, my old frame tend to, I used to get a lot of damages on my motors like this. You can see these are some bent casings I have from bashing into things. So I made this little motor guard specifically for this frame. So you can see right here, I just bought a new frame so I can rebuild my original QAV with the junky ESCs. But here's my new frame, and then this is how they fit. You can see, I don't know if you can see, but they fit really nicely, just like that. And then your motor is going to go on top of that. So I'll show you on the actual frame. So it's just going to go like that. Fits on like that, except I'm going to remove these screws, and then on the bottom there's the same pattern on as on the QAV, and instead of the M3x6, I'm going to use M3x8, just so it can give enough clearance for this motor guard. So it's just going to sit on there like this, and then you put the screws on. So let me do that real quick, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I just put on my my motor guards. As you can see, they're pretty beefy, and I think they'll protect the motors pretty good. Okay, so next we're going to start installing the FPV part, the FPV camera and the FPV transmitter. So the Sony 600 TVL cameras, usually they come looking like this. Let me move this out of the way. They come with this little extra tab thing on the outside of the board. You can, what you do is you just remove it. You don't need it for our setup. Just take some pliers and you can just kind of break them off where the little dotted area is. Okay, so once you have the tabs off your camera, the QAV250 came with this little carbon fiber piece right here, and what you're supposed to do is this part's supposed to go in the front of your camera like that, or I mean in front of your quad. I don't know if you can see that. And then your camera is supposed to go through this hole like that, and then you're supposed to use these little tiny screws. Put them in through here, through the holes. Ugh. Such a terrible design. Like that. And then you're Supposed to use these tiny little nuts and put them on the back like that. And you can adjust the angle of the camera by either tightening or loosening, you know, the top and bottom screws. You could do that, but I've broken many cameras using this one, using this carbon fiber mount, and also these screws always come off, and you'll never find them if you ever lose it in the grass. And another bad design is like if you're flying and you run into a tree or something, these screws aren't going to give at all. So what ends up happening is you're going to break this little circuit board part on your camera. So I didn't like the design in my first quad, so I made this 3D printed one like this, and you can see it's already got a built-in angle, and it fits right into the standoffs on the quad. And how this works is you can see it's already got an angle, so you put it like that. So if you sit it flush, it's already got a 15-degree angle in it, and then you can adjust the angle by either tightening or loosening the zip ties on the top or bottom. So if you tighten the top ones, you get a 10-degree tilt. And if you tighten the bottom ones, you get a 20-degree tilt. So I like this one because it's easily adjustable. So the way you use this is you just sit it flush like this. Oops, I had it wrong. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like that. So you just take your zip ties. You just put them through these holes right here. And then you come around and tie it up. Okay, so once you got your zip ties in here nice and loosely, you can decide what angle you want. If you want it just a 15-degree, you just tighten them evenly. But if you want a 10-degree, you tighten the top ones until it sits flush. If you want a 20-degree, you'll tighten the bottom one. So I'm going to go for a 20. So what I'm going to do is tighten this one all the way to the max on the bottom part. And then the top ones you're just going to tighten loosely, or loosely do the zip ties just to hold it in place. So once that's on, I'm just going to cut these remaining zip tie parts off. Okay, so once you have your FPV camera mounted, whether you use a 3D printed part like this or the Lumineer carbon fiber piece, we can start getting ready to wire the FPV camera to your OSD board. So just go ahead and connect your 3-pin JST. This should have came with your FPV camera. So we're just gonna plug it in like this, and then this mount, the way you mount it, you just slide it onto the standoffs here. Okay, so the way you connect the camera to the OSD board is real simple. If you look under these pins right here, it's all labeled. It goes camera, power, ground, and then ground, power, VTX. So the camera right here would be the signal lead, and VTX is the signal lead for your transmitter. So the signal on the cameras is usually like a yellow wire, yellow or white, and then you got your power and ground, and then you just connect signal to camera, power to power, ground to ground. On the camera end, you got to pay attention, the camera is on this side. And then the video transmitter that we're using is the Immersion RC 600 milliwatt, and those come with this big fat 5-pin Molex that goes in right here, plugs in right here, and then the power cable goes in on the other little connector. So the way you connect this is what you're going to do is on this 5-pin Molex, you're going to remove the 2 left and 2 right wires like this, And you're only going to keep this yellow wire that's in the center, the one that goes into video right there, and that'll be your signal. So you're going to connect your signal or your 5-pin Molex like that, and you're going to remove these two like that, and then this yellow wire is going to go into VTX on the very left over here, and then your power is going to go into here, and then you're going to, you know, splice these or cut these, and then go red to power here, and then ground to ground. Pretty self-explanatory. So the most confusing part is you're not going to use any of these over here. You're just going to use these three right here. This yellow, black, and red goes in the video transmitter side. So I'm just going to cut up my wires and then splice them, or put them into these little connectors, and then so we can connect it like this. Okay, so this is what it should look like after you have your wires all cut and spliced into these little servo connectors. I just wanted to show you what it looks like before I put on the mesh. Basically, I just hooked it up according to the diagram in part 1 of this post. Signal, ground, or signal, power, ground goes into signal, power, ground on the camera. Same thing on the transmitter part. You got ground and power going into the ground and power on the transmitter, and then you got just your signal coming out of your OSD and then to the signal of the transmitter. So let me put on the heat shrink, and then we'll finish putting the quad back together. Okay, so this is what your quad should look like after you have everything connected. What I did was I basically just connected the video transmitter to the transmitter part on the OSD, and then the camera to the camera part, and I put black mesh instead of my regular orange around the wires, because I like to use black on the inside of the quad. It helps kind of camouflage the wires a little bit, helps clean up the build. And then I installed my D4R2 using this little 3D printed mount that I made. And then one problem that I had in my old QAV was that anytime I crashed into a tree or anything, the battery would just fly right through the flight controller stack, and it would break these standoffs, and then you're pretty much done for the day. Especially in this build, our stack is so tall. I think it's going to be a big problem if you run into a tree. It's going to break that right off. So I just designed this 3D printed mount right here, or this 3D protector. What it basically does is just slide onto these standoffs, and it prevents the battery from flying through your flight controller stack like this. So if you hit a tree, this thing's going to stop your battery from flying through. And it's got a little cutout on the side, so I can mount my battery on the side like this, and it'll connect over the top. So I'm going to finish putting this together, and then I'll show you one more piece that I made for the video transmitter. Okay, so after we mounted our top plate, the last thing we really have to do is mount our video transmitter. I really like these Immersion RC 600 milliwatts, but the bad thing about these, it's such an awkward shape, and this little SMA connector right here is not very strong. As you can see, it's basically just held on to the circuit board by 5 little solder points. So a common problem with these transmitters is that when you crash and you hit something on this antenna, it'll just rip these solder points right off your circuit board. And if you can't trace it back to where the leads go, then your board is pretty much trashed, and you're just, you gotta pay $70 for another transmitter. And I've done that several times in my old quad. So I just designed this 3D printed part right here. It's designed to go over the video transmitter, and it's got a little part right here where it's gonna hopefully brace the SMA connector where it connects to the circuit board. So you just put it in there like that, and then you just put a zip tie around. I'm gonna put it like this. So you just tie this part securely onto this reinforced part, so hopefully when you crash, all the movement is going to be on the antenna. It'll just bend around and not over here, because if you move this part, it's going to snap the SMA right off the circuit board. So hopefully this will keep this mount will keep this part still, and all the movement is on the antenna frame. So just like that, tighten it up, and then I'm going to clip this part off. And then this one is designed specifically for the QAV. I've got these little tabs right here to where you can mount it back here like this. As you can see, there's these little tabs that go into the frame right here. This is good if you don't plan on mounting it with a recording camera like the Mobius or anything. But if you do plan on mounting a camera, this mount can move back over here, so you can mount it this way also. And this side is only got one tab, because it's if you mount it here you can use two, but right here you can't have a tab, so it's designed to sit like that. And then you just put your zip tie around it, and then you just connect your FPV transmitter like that. Okay, so this is pretty much our quad all built up. The last thing I have to do is basically just put a little Velcro strap for my battery, and then I'm just going to zip tie some of these cables to clean it up just a little bit. So this is pretty much it. As you can see, it's a super clean build. You can hardly see any wires on this. And everything is nice and protected. Motors are protected. Your FPV transmitter is protected, camera is protected, your bottom part is all covered, and you got wire mesh all over your wires and stuff. So let's button this thing up, and then we'll get ready for the flight. Okay, so one thing I almost forgot to show you guys is to set up the failsafe. Failsafe is basically a feature on the receiver that tells the quad what to do when it loses signal, or when it stops receiving a signal from the transmitter. Say if you fly too far, or you fly somewhere with a lot of radio interference, the failsafe will kick in. So by default, the D4R2 is going to hold the last position of the sticks before you lose signal. So say if you're flying with 50% throttle and you're going forward, and you lose signal, the D4R2 is going to hold that 50% throttle and just keep flying wherever it goes, which is a bad thing. So what we're going to do is set up the failsafe to where if you lose signal on the Taranis, it's just going to put the throttle to 0, and then you just fall to the sky. So a lot of times I get people asking me, why don't you just set the throttle to 20% or whatever, so it'll glide, slowly glide to the ground. But that sounds good, but usually if your failsafe kicks in, that means you lost control of your quad. So the last thing you want is, say you lose control of your quad and your props to keep spinning, and then you can like glide into a group of people, with your props still going. You could really hurt someone. So it's better to just have the quad drop out of the sky than fly somewhere with the prop spinning. Even if it does, even if you don't fly into people, the quad is probably going to land in a weird way, like upside down or something, to where your props can't spin. So if your props are still at 20%, or your motor's at 20%, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to break something, and then also you'll probably burn out your motors or your ESC, because these are still going to be turning, So the best thing to do is set it to 0. So I'll give you a demo of what I mean.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis.
So I'll show you what default failsafe.
Engine on. Engine on.
Okay. Say you're flying and you lose control. Your props are going to keep spinning like that.
Welcome to Free Sky Taranis. 0 dB.
So what you wanted to do is to set it to where the props go to 0, or the motors go to 0 when you lose control. So the way to set the failsafe is you put your throttle at 0, and then on the little D4R2, you quickly press this little button for less than 1 second, like this. And then that should be set. So now we'll test it. So arm. So when I cut off the transmitter, the motor should stop spinning. So your failsafe is set. Now we can go fly. Okay, so just a note on the flying. When I made this video, I already sold this quad, so I was trying to take it very easy, just trying not to crash. So on the bottom right there, you can see that's what it looks like through the Dominator V2s. That's what the OSD looks like. On the top left, you can see the acro. That's your current flight mode. And then bottom left, you can see your RSSI. It's currently set for the alarm to go off at 60. So if you drop below 60, you'll start flashing. And you can see your battery there. And then on the right, you can see your throttle position, how much throttle you're giving, and the flight time also. So currently in this flight, I'm running a 75C4S battery on the Cobra 2204 1960 motors with 50/40 props. And with this setup, I was getting around 6 to 7 minutes of just normal flying. The quad, the way it's set up right now for my current level of flying, my skill level, I think it's a little too much power for me. Because earlier in that OSD, you can see I was flying around 50 to 70% of throttle most of the time, and then every now and then I would punch it to maybe 80% right before a roll or a flip. So I'm thinking I'll probably go back to a 3S setup. I'm still trying to play around with my quad setup to see if I can find the perfect combo. I'm building a client quad right now with the new Cobra 2206 21 kV motors. So I'll probably end up going with those with 50/45 props on 3S, because I think 4S is a little much for me right now. But overall, the way this quad is set up on the QAV, it's super light, and it's really nimble. And on these DYS BL20As with dampened light and active braking, the quad has really nice feel, really good control. It feels like you can almost just put it anywhere you want with tons of power left over. So like if you get in trouble or something, you could just easily punch out at your trouble. Right there you can see it punch out a little bit right before the flip. And this is my favorite kind of flying, just flying through a park with some trees and stuff. When I first started, I flew in open fields, and it was okay, but it got very boring. So if you watch both of my videos, you probably spent like 2 hours watching these. So I hope these were helpful to you, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have a whole bunch of cool videos coming out, including the PID tuning one. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Thanks.